French toast is the exchange student that you have like a 3-week affair with.
Like, we can see that you don't have pants on.
Savannah yelling we're out of time as we go off the air.
Savannah yelling a lot of things tonight.
And welcome to the Mark It Down podcast.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Mark It Down podcast. I am James Giasanti, and it is Thursday night, so you know what that means. We're here to cover TNA Wrestling, Impact, and that means we're in the Gym-Packed Zone. We are hot on our way to Genesis, the first pay-per-view of the year for TNA. This was a somewhat memorable Impact because we had a goodbye, even though the show did not acknowledge it in any real way whatsoever. We had some fun matchups, and we are just building towards this pay-per-view. A couple of topics, as our title indicates, have been kind of on the minds of TNA fans for a while, since news and rumors broke out about the possible fate of the X Division and the X Division Championship that's being held by Moose. We'll get to that in a little bit. I figure we'll start at the top of the show as we start with a match that deals with the fallout from last week's Impact, as the System, or members of the System, Eddie Edwards, Dango, and Brian Myers take on Steve Maclin, Eric Young, and Jonathan Gresham. This match came from, I don't know if it's a misunderstanding, a sign of unintentional disrespect that happened last week, but the System rubbed Maclin, Young, and Gresham the wrong way. A brawl ensued last week backstage, and now we are seeing that match start this show. Again, even last week when it happened, I thought it was super random. I get it, because these are all talents that you want to have on your show regularly. Maclin has been at the forefront for we know how long. Eric Young, TNA legend. And Jonathan Gresham is a little bit of the odd man out, in my opinion, but that pays off in its own way at the end of this matchup. And the System are the System. Love them, hate them, believe in them, fuck them. Might have been a little too early for that curse. I think we'll be fine. Regardless, the System is here to stay for the time being. Heels make their way out first, baby faces after. This is a pretty standard match. I've said it week in and week out with TNA. They love these 6-man tags. They love these multi-man tags just so they can squeeze as many people on a show as possible. And these matches tend to be, I don't want to say paint by numbers, but for the most part, been there, done that. Everyone gets their spot in. The finish coming as Maclin hits his KIA finisher onto Dango, onto JDC, getting the win for his team. After a brief celebration, the System attacked the winning trio with chairs. After beating them down and keeping Young and Maclin in the ring, they put a chair around Gresham's head and run him face first into the ring post on the outside. This is very reminiscent of what they did to Jeff Hardy. They've done this to a few talents over time, and every time we see that, those talents go away for a bit. Now, I'm not entirely sure what Gresham's contract status is. If you are worried, I don't blame you, considering how many people are leaving TNA, the exodus of people that have left TNA. But I think realistically, this is a real shot at getting us back to Gresham's masked gimmick, which unceremoniously went away later last year. It really felt like they were building up to something with that character, with that gimmick, with the ink and everything, and then he just got better. If this is how they want to bring it back, it's not the worst way. It's not the worst way. Attacking his head, attacking his throat, getting him to a point of wanting complete revenge and go on the pure hatred, anger route, not the worst route. So let's see. But if this is the last time we do see Gresham, he won't be the only person who this was his last appearance on Impact. Moving on, we had a very lengthy and a very, I don't want to say super in-depth, but a deep package on Joe Hendry and his history before TNA, his life before wrestling, and just who he is and how long it's taken to get to this point in his journey on his way to the TNA World Heavyweight Championship, and his match against Nick Nemeth at Genesis later this month. It was really, if you're a Hendry fan, this was a really nice video. They really got elaborate. It was very documentary style, talking about his time being a young guy in Scotland, wanting the hustle of trying to become a musician, that not panning out, him be winning 2 British national championships in I forget what form of martial arts it was. It might have been judo, it might have been amateur wrestling, but I know that sometimes Hendry gets a bad rap as not being the best worker. I know he's good. A lot of people recognize that he is a good, a decent to very good ring worker, depending on the matchup. And I think this was a good reminder of just how talented Hendry is and how hard he has been grinding for so long to find success. Whether it was music or whether it was wrestling or whether it was martial arts or acting. He talked about going on auditions and not really finding his groove there either. But Hendry has been busting his butt for a very long time. And now it finally seems, as he called it, the perfect storm came together. And this success has just been a tidal wave for him. So a really nice recap of Joe Hendry's history. Ooh, WWE, what are you hoping to see on the John Cena farewell tour? Joe Hendry tweeting his image right above that. A lot of people are expecting Hendry at the Royal Rumble. I don't think it's outside the realm of possibility. Genesis is before the Rumble. Him being the TNA World Champion and taking the title into the Royal Rumble would be huge for TNA. I've been very vocal about how much I don't think this partnership has been super beneficial for TNA. But that level of exposure would be huge. People already love Hendry. People are already used to this partnership between WWE and TNA. Well, realistically, more NXT and TNA. And Hendry himself has been advocating for the longest time, at this point for years, for a match against Cena. He has been very vocal once the Cena farewell tour got announced that he would love a match with Cena. I think they would be great. So no complaints, no arguments here. Joe Hendry versus Cena, whether it's a moment in the Rumble or whether it's a one-on-one match on Cena's farewell tour, awesome. If Cena wins his 17th world title and that world title is the TNA world title, I will die. I will die. But let it happen. Please let it happen. But yeah, really nice package, really nice presentation for Hendry. I know a lot of us have been very disgruntled about his stop and go. It felt in the latter half of 2024 when it was so obvious how over he was and how popular he was. So it feels good to see him getting such memorable treatment. Hopefully that will lead to the world title on the 19th. But moving on, we had a match that was advertised for Savannah Evans. Savannah Evans was going to go against a mystery opponent. Matt saying, nice package. Hey, I'm sure it's lovely. I'm sure it's lovely and Scottish. And this was advertised as a one-on-one match for Savannah Evans with an opponent to be named later. Out comes Zaya Brookside, someone we haven't seen in a little bit. And she simply says, watch this. And we see footage from TNA Turning Point where Brookside basically had Savannah Evans beat, and that would have led to a Knockouts World title match against Masha Slamovich, but that she had gotten that pin was interrupted by Rosemary. She was screwed out of that, and then Savannah Evans injured her. I don't know how legit that is, or I believe the injury is real. I just don't know if it was Savannah who actually did it. But Brookside said there is someone else who Savannah Evans did injure, and that person is ready to get her revenge on Evans right now. The lights go out, and out comes Ying Lee, who you might know as a former WWE superstar, Xia Li. Xia Li, who never really, unfortunately, found her footing, in my opinion, in WWE, whether it was NXT or the main roster. She came into a good amount of fanfare here in TNA, and then again, she was gone for a little bit. But this matchup was fun. This matchup was fine. Didn't go super long. The finish coming after she hits her big spin kick finish on Evans and gets the 1-2-3. This is a much needed shot in the arm for the women's division, for the Knockouts division in TNA. We've been talking ad nauseum about how thin the division has felt lately. But with new additions like Tessa Blanchard, with the return of Ying Lee, and the future, hopefully very soon return for Xia Brookside, there's some nice padding there, some very interesting different matchups that I think we could look forward to, not only for the Knockouts World title, but as we'll talk about a little bit later, for the Knockouts Tag Team titles. So all we've been needing is something a little fresh, and I think we're on the verge of getting it. So a lot to look forward to there. Moving on, we then go backstage where we were told we were going to have an interview with Mean Gia Miller, hardest working woman in TNA, having a conversation with Jordynn Grace. That didn't really happen, though, as Jordynn very angrily took the microphone out of Gia Miller's hands. We're going to talk about that because I'm getting sick of the disrespect that Gia Miller is facing on a weekly basis from these knockouts. Anyway, Jordynn says that she is going to, she has a message for Tessa. She says, Tessa, if you want to fight, let's fight, bitch. I'll be in the ring later and meet me there. After this, she hands the mic back to Gia and we go to commercial break. I'm holding it together. The voice is holding it a little bit longer. It's not at the strongest it's been, but it's definitely at the most consistent. Coming back from commercial, we go to another section of the Knockouts division where we had a vignette with Masha Slamovich getting a message from Rosemary. It was very trippy. It was very very well edited, very well shot. And, you know, it was one of those things that they're really showing how Rosemary has gotten in the head of Masha Slamovich, and that and Rosemary has set her sights on that Knockouts title. I do want to briefly talk about a segment that I skipped, but at the same time, I think it highlights just how TNA is and has always been. They tend to have a moment of the week. And it's something that it's from TNA's history at some point, whether it's a matchup or a segment or whatever it may be. But this one was from Genesis 2009, so topical because we are on our way to Genesis. And it's Kurt Angle versus Jeff Jarrett for the TNA title. And I just think that was perfect considering Jeff Jarrett being such a big figure right now in AEW, having starting his farewell tour, his retirement tour. And TNA is just always known for capitalizing on the history of wrestlers that are elsewhere that have had whether it's a cup of coffee in TNA or a historic run like Jarrett had, or infamous run like Jarrett had. But as always, TNA's social media team, TNA's history department, knowing when to strike. I thought that was a fun little tidbit. But back to the actual action. we get to our promised gauntlet match of the night, the Northern Armory gauntlet match, as we saw Mike Santana go or attempt to go against every member of the Northern Armory. This match was heavily hyped up, especially considering Santana's history with the system last year, being the only man to defeat every member of the system. Granted, very different circumstances. That was over the course of a year, as opposed to here where this was meant to be all in one night. But Santana, coming out through the crowd, fan favorite, crowd is super into him, as always. He starts out the match against Judas Icarus of the Northern Armory. Santana makes quick work of Icarus. I don't want to say it's barely a matchup, but this was to make Santana look strong, look powerful, and to look fast. He made quick work of him, basically 2 minutes, and he took him out with a spin the block for the win, his discus lariat. He then faced Travis Williams, Judas Icarus's partner. This one went a little bit longer. Again, still a quick match, but this was the first time that we saw a little bit of offense go against Santana, with Williams getting some offense in on the knee, and delivering some offense to at least slow down Santana. But again, not enough to slow down the Bronx Badass, as Santana finished up with a huge power bomb and finishing off Travis Williams. Now, at this point, Josh Alexander is the only member of the Northern Armory who hadn't come out yet. Williams had accompanied Icarus to the ring. Alexander did not. Josh's music hits, but before Santana could do anything, he is sneak attacked. He is ambushed by Alexander and the duo of Icarus and Williams. All three men are beating Santana down. Alexander hits a C4 spike, planting Santana down, and he finally grabs his headgear, his wrestling headgear that Santana had taken and had held on to these last few weeks. He puts it on to a chant from the crowd that he looks stupid. Look, it's a unique look, and people didn't hate it when he was a babyface. That's all I'm going to say. But I figured this was more or less how this was going to go. I figured Santana was going to beat Icarus. He was going to beat Williams. And then there was going to be some level of shenanigans against Alexander. Now, I did think that Alexander would just straight up beat him after a beatdown or whatever. I thought that there would be a pin, but that wasn't the case. Regardless, they are definitely setting up for a one-on-one match at Genesis, which was always obvious, which was always going to be the outcome. But yeah, if you go back to that powerbomb producer boy, I got to say, Santana looked like a stud in this matchup. Oh man. I know we don't have volume on it, but basically everything Santana did tonight was loud. He delivered a chop to Icarus that was so loud, the crowd went quiet. Like, they did the ooh, but then they went quiet because of how hard that chop was. So, okay. But very cool showing for Santana. They are very clearly building him to eventually be the TNA World Champion. I don't know if he'll be the guy to take it off Hendry or if he'll be the guy to take it off the guy who beats Hendry, but only a matter of time. And again, I've been saying it's an embarrassment of riches in the TNA heavyweight division right now, in the world heavyweight division. We then go backstage to our favorite Iceman, the Concierge, George Iceman, with an announcement, as he put it, a blockbuster breakthrough announcement, something huge, something special that the whole world is going to want to see. He says he's going to do something unprecedented, something that takes guts, something that no one in the history of this company has ever done. He says that he sees Heather and Ash by Elegance as the TNA Knockouts Tag Team Champions. He said next week, in front of the entire world, they're going to do a pre-launch of the championship celebration of elegance. So they are going to have a championship celebration before they win the titles. They're going to have a championship celebration before they win or even have a match for the titles. It's funny. It goes in line with Ash and Heather by Elegance. It goes in line with this whole gimmick. I just hope it doesn't jinx them because, quite frankly, I am very much rooting for Heather and Ash to win the tag titles. It's nothing against Spitfire. They're a fine tag team, but this is, I think, their second or third reign. And they've, again, no disrespect, they really only won the titles because there were no other teams in the division. But I am all in on this celebration. Let's see if it comes back to bite them in the butt later on. We then had a very surprising segment, a backstage promo from Rosemary. Rosemary saying that she's talking to someone off screen, and she is talking about coming for the TNA Knockouts Championship and the champion Masha Slamovich. As she just continues, I don't want to say rambling, but like ranting and raving, in comes in Raven. Yep, ECW legend Raven, former champion for TNA Raven. Not an unfamiliar face, especially in recent TNA. He pops up from time to time. Raven and Rosemary are talking briefly before Raven sort of sets Rosemary off, saying it's been a long time since you've won the Knockouts titles. Or the Knockouts title, that it's been like 6 or 7 years. Rosemary gets a little upset, grabs him, and takes a knife to his throat. Raven says, if only he wasn't taken. He calmly suggests to her that they should have a Clockwork Orange House of Fun match, which was Raven's signature match back in TNA. Rosemary loves the idea, thanks him for giving her the idea and for the matchup. And then it fades to black, and Raven hits his quote. Always cool to see Raven. Such an underappreciated talent, such an underappreciated mind in professional wrestling. I would love for him to pop up a little bit more, be more of an on-screen presence in certain stories. I understand you can't do it all the time, but really nice. And we haven't had a match like this in a while. So definitely a good rub for the Masha reign, win or lose, and same thing for Rosemary to be involved in a matchup like this. It's definitely going to be memorable. So both of these women, good luck. Moving forward, we go to a tag team match as the number one contenders for the TNA tag team titles. Ooh, Nick Maniotis saying that Raven is his favorite hardcore champion. I mean, I think he's the most winning hardcore champion of all time, too. That's a great question. If anybody's paying attention, leave it in the comments. Who is your favorite hardcore champion? There's a part of me that wants to say RVD, but it feels lazy. I don't know. I also loved, of course, Jeff Hardy as champion, but I wouldn't associate that belt with him. But yeah, Raven's a good pick for hardcore champion, and for maybe he could take on Travis Scott, win the new one. Yep, Raven is the most successful male WWE hardcore champion with 26 reigns. That's crazy. I think the only person who has him beat is R-Truth. R-Truth with the 24/7 championship. And that's a shame. There you go. It's starting to fade a little bit. But next we move on to the Rascalz taking on the Good Hands. And again, the Rascalz are the number one contenders for the Hardys tag team titles. The Good Hands, of course, take the time to bully, to rib the city, to bully and rib the Rascalz before the match starts. This was, again, a pretty quick matchup. The Rascalz got an early lead. Didn't last too long as Wentz gets isolated by both members of the team, by both Hotch and Skyler, who use quick tags and just quick bursts of double team offense to keep him grounded. Trey eventually gets his way into the ring, hits the hot tag, and is able to shift the momentum. As they're leading basically to the finish of the match, we get him a feed him to the lion, super kick, and spine buster combo finish. 1, 2, 3, and the Rascalz build some offense on their way to Genesis and the Hardys. Eric saying that R-Truth had the hardcore title 54 times. Come on. Is the 24/7 championship canon? I feel like it is, unfortunately. Like, I don't think Speed is. I don't think the Speed championship is canon, but I do unfortunately think the 24/7 championship is canon. So Raven, the number 2, I think, most winning champion of all time in WWE, behind R-Truth. What a sentence. After the match, we go backstage. I say bring back the hardcore title. I don't like the 24/7 title because it's basically just a game of tag and a game of chase. At least with the hardcore title, you would have matchups. At least with the hardcore title, it led to, I think, some very memorable spots. There are a handful, I think, of memorable spots for the 24/7 title. And they all included the same people over and over. But whatever. I like fun stuff like that. I do like fun backstage stuff like that. But I don't think you could top like WrestleMania 18 and the hardcore title starting with Maven, going to I couldn't even tell you how many people. I know Hurricane. I know Mighty Molly Holly. I know Christian. Al Snow? I don't know about Al Snow. But a lot of people want it. And then eventually going back to Maven. So, yeah, love me a good hardcore title. But moving on, after this quick whatever matchup, we get a backstage segment with Rhino and Frankie Kazarian, where Frankie basically warned Rhino that he'll be out there later tonight on commentary, and says that that he should just be ready because maybe, just maybe, Nemeth will cash in his Call Your Shot Gauntlet trophy and go after Nick Nemeth and the World Championship. This leaves Rhino scowling and very perturbed. Very perturbed. We then go elsewhere backstage as we have a brief promo from Steve Maclin and Eric Young, who take great issue with what happened earlier in the night and what the system did to Jonathan Gresham. They say that this is a declaration of war against the system and they will be going after them. Before that could really go too far, though, they're interrupted by AJ Francis, Top Dollar, and KC Navarro. So I think the rumors are true, guys. AJ Francis has re-signed with TNA. That's probably a very good move on his part. He is, I think, killing it there, but I don't know that he would thrive anywhere else. So good on him, smart decision, and I'm happy for KC Navarro, who I think, quite frankly, has killed it with everything they've given him. So good partnership, and they start some beef with Maclin and Eric Young, indicating that they want to go after the TNA tag titles themselves. So let's see how these two teams will eventually factor in to the TNA tag team division, another division that desperately needs new life injected into it and desperately needs new challengers for the Hardys to beat. I said it, and I don't feel bad about it. We then go to Moose as he is accompanied by Alisha Edwards. Alisha Edwards asking that, "Do you want to know something?" quote of hers. It's definitely, like, she's definitely going for that Vicky Guerrero, excuse me, heat. But it's working. The crowd reacts well to it. Alisha gets the crowd hot and ready. Moose then grabs the microphone and says he is the greatest X Division champion of all time and the face of the company. He goes on and on about how great he is. He goes on and on about what it means to be champion. And then he tells Alisha, who's holding his X Division belt, he never wants to see that thing again and to throw it in the trash. That at Genesis, he will debut a new TNA X Division championship worthy of him. Look, there's been a lot of fear online that TNA was going to discontinue the X Division championship. I had faith that they weren't that dumb, and I know we live in a world of LOL TNA, but I had faith that they wouldn't be dumb enough to get rid of the division that separates them from any other company. They made their name off of the X Division. Some of their most historic and memorable matches are from the X Division. Some of their biggest stars came from the X Division. I would be shocked to see them get rid of it completely. Now, granted, when Moose debuts this new title, he indicated that it will still be the X Division title, but I wonder if this is just going to be like a temporary Moose X Division title, or if we're just going to get a brand new X Division title altogether. Either way, at least it's something for that division, which, as historic as it is, as great as it's always been, like I've been saying, has been sort of, I guess, on the back burner for a little bit. TNA has always been in a weird position that they've made it clear that their X Division is not their mid-card title. It's just its own division. That's why we've seen some pretty huge names win it over the years. That's why Moose has it. It's just a different division. It's not a mid-card division. Quite frankly, they don't really have a mid-card title. It should be the Digital Media Championship, but they've never treated it as such. It's oftentimes an afterthought. Hell, right now, the X Division champion is PCO. Not the X Division, I'm sorry. The Digital Media champion is PCO. I couldn't tell you the last thing he's done. Like, I really couldn't tell. Like, he lost so much traction after Steph DeLander got hurt, and they had to abruptly end that story of him being married to her. And he's not even just holding that belt. He's holding that Heritage Canadian Championship that they dusted off just for him. So, I don't know. I would love to see the Digital Media Championship get a raise. I would love to see the X Division Championship get a new fresh coat of paint. And that seems to be exactly what we're getting at Genesis. I've long been saying that Moose is the right champion for this division because he is a hateable heel that a plucky underdog, high-flying X Division star could beat and really, really get a good rub off of. But let's see. Ace Austin, who will be challenging for the X Division title at Genesis, he could be the guy for TNA. I've said it over and over. He could be the guy for TNA. And if the X Division is the road to the world title that he indicated he wanted last week, sure. Why not? But sorry, I'm rambling a little bit. As he's going on and on, as I've just been going on and on, Moose was interrupted by Andrew Everett. Everett makes his way to the ring and takes issue with Moose claiming credit for any kind of X Division history. Everett claims he is a true X Division competitor. Moose warns him that one more word and he's going to get his ass kicked. Everett says Everett does not take that warning lightly. Gets and for his troubles gets a big boot to the face from Moose. Moose then tells Everett he just earned himself an impromptu X Division title shot. And Moose, who is still wearing his regular clothes, not looking like he was ever ready to wrestle, decides to take it to Everett. Moose demands a referee, and it's a brief fight. Granted, Everett did get some shots in, but Moose dominated him, basically ending the match on the outside, hitting a huge power bomb on the apron, on the edge of the ring, the hardest part of the ring, Everett sold it like death before Moose takes him back into the ring, hits another massive power bomb, and gets the 1-2-3 and a successful defense of the X Division title. We then go backstage. Oh, there you go. That's that power bomb. It was gnarly. Granted, like, wait, no, is this the power bomb? No, it's not. Wow, that kid took 2 bumps onto that apron then. Holy shit. I forgot about that choke slam. And, well, this could have been a huge moment for Everett. Stepping up to Mr. TNA Moose could be huge, should be huge. I don't think he quite had his John Cena ruthless aggression moment, but that's okay. Still another fresh face to really try and spice things up in the company right now. But moving on, we go backstage as Sammi Callihan is talking to the director of authority, Santino Marella. Santino is looking at his phone. He's approached by Callihan, and Callihan says, and brings up the TNA tag team title picture and the match between the Hardys and the Rascalz at Genesis. Sammi mentions how he and PCO have never been pinned or submitted as a team. That's right. That's what PCO has been doing. Fucking tag teaming with Sammi Callihan despite being a singles champion. He talks about how they've never been pinned as a team. Santino offers them a match against the Hardys next week, and that if they win, they will be added to the title match at Genesis. I have a weird feeling they're not going to win, and maybe that's what leads to Callihan versus PCO for the Digital Media Championship. Now, granted, Callihan should not be the Digital Media Champion. That's fine, though. He is a name for the company, and he should not be going for the world title anytime soon. So at least it's something. Santino also humorously brought up a bunch of possible names for their tag team. I think they landed on Death Meat, something Callihan initially rejected, but let's see Death Meat for next week. After this, we go back inside the Impact Zone. We get in the ring where Jordynn Grace comes out, grabs a microphone, and says that that Blanchard, Tessa Blanchard, should be terrified of what Jordynn Grace can say right now. But instead, she offers Blanchard the same opportunity she'd offer anyone, which is to come to the ring to be face-to-face with her so she could say it directly to her. It's at this point that Tessa runs into the ring off camera and surprise attacks Jordynn Grace. But Jordynn is ready for her, and they are brawling, they are fighting. Eventually, Blanchard hits a big kick that drops Jordynn, but officials swarm in, security swarm in, separate these two women. It kind of looked like Tessa might have been bleeding. It kind of looked like Tessa might have gotten a little bit of a cut on her face. I couldn't quite tell, but these two women are just, there is a lot of heat to this feud. No, everything Tessa Blanchard is going to do is going to have some heat to it. The crowd wanted them to fight, and both women were ready to do it up until we got to the commercial break. It would have been a fun way to end the show, quite frankly. But instead, this is our main event, and we have Rhino and Joe Hendry taking on the Nemeth brothers, world champion Nick Nemeth, and his little brother, Ryan Nemeth. I thought this was fine. I don't think there is anything too amazing in it. Ryan Nemeth did the majority of the work. Not that Nick wasn't working. It's just I think the story there was Ryan trying to prove things to his brother and Nick not being too eager to wrestle before Genesis. The finish of the match coming as Rhino hits a massive gore onto Ryan Nemeth. Nick Nemeth hitting a super kick, taking out Rhino. And then Joe Hendry tossing Nick Nemeth out and then hitting a huge standing ovation on Ryan Nemeth getting the 1, 2, 3, getting the crowd behind him, and then finishing the show, closing the show out with a big stare down with the world champion. Guys, let's see, what do we got here? Go back to the, he was going for a famous error turned into a power bomb. Sit out power bomb. It was a good spot. Guys, this is Rhino's apparently last appearance in TNA. He made it clear a couple of weeks ago on Twitter that he had wrestled his last match with TNA. He is done with TNA, and I think he kind of indicated it'll be his last match ever with TNA. So whether that means he got a nice coaching gig with WWE, whether that means he's going to be at the Performance Center with the kids in NXT, I don't know. But I don't think he's got another appearance. I think that's everything he did at the tapings. And if that is Rhino's last appearance in TNA, good for him that he went out on a win. But man, it felt so unimportant. And that's a bummer. Rhino is a TNA Hall of Famer. He won the NWA title. He's a former world champion for TNA. And he's been there for like years and years and years. He deserved a little more ceremony if that was his last appearance. Let's see. Maybe I got my dates wrong. Maybe he has 1 or 2 more TNA impacts to him. But he's not going to be at the pay-per-view, that's for sure. Unless something really changed. He said he's done. So, weird way for Rhino to go out. The finish was definitely way more about Hendry than it was about Rhino. But bottom line, Joe Hendry picked up a big win in the war against Nick Nemeth for the TNA World title. God, I hope Opposite Momentum is not a bitch and does not screw him come Genesis. But guys, this was TNA. This was Impact. Thank you so much for joining me in the Gym Pack Zone tonight. Thank you so much for enjoying TNA with me. I love covering this show, and I love having you guys with me, despite being sick. We have been on a roll with the pod these last 2 weeks. We've really been just hammering it out with you guys. I'm very much looking forward to a quiet little break before next week and things pick up again. You guys know the deal. If you're new here and this is your first time watching us, thank you so much for checking us out. I don't know what brought you here, but I appreciate it. If you want to stick with us and check out everything else we cover, whether that's WWE or AEW or New Japan or obviously here in TNA, hit the subscribe button. We're on pretty much, it feels like every day of the week nowadays. And if you are a regular of ours, if you're coming in and saying hi again, thank you so much. You guys know the deal. We're as good as we are because you guys are amazing. So thank you. If you want more of us and you don't want to check us out just here on YouTube, check us out on all forms of social media. Check us out on Facebook. Check us out on TikTok. Although I think TikTok's only going to be around for another 10 days, apparently, which is crazy to think about. Check us out on Instagram. Check us out on X. Check us out on Blue Sky. We're doing all the things. We're saying all the funny stuff in all the funny places. But guys, my name is James Gisanti. This is the Mark It Down podcast. I am very tired. Producer boy, take us home.